Hello viewers, yes, this is Ranjana ma'am, and yes, you are watching mine as well as your channel, and this time it is from Treasure Chest. Yes, it is a prose piece, a short story, and I decide, see, y'all have the book Treasure Chest where there are 20 poems. Y'all are not supposed to read all of them. Y'all will read the first 5 in class 9, and after that 11 to 15 in your class 10. Same for prose. In prose, in class 9 you have Bonku Babu's Friend. It is a short story by Satyajit Ray. Then you have Oliver Asks for More, Charles Dickens. The Model Millionaire, Oscar Wilde. Homecoming, Rabindranath Tagore, and The Boy Who Broke the Bank. These 5 are in your class 9 syllabus, and in 10 not the following 5, but again similar to poems, it is 11 to 15. That means with the photographer Stephen Leacock, then the 12th one, The Elevator, 13th one, The Girl Who Can, the 14th one, The Pedestrian, and the 15th one is The Last Lesson. So 5 in 9 and 5 in class 10. So these are your 10 stories out of the 20 which are given in this book, and same for the poems as I just told you before. So I will start with, this is about Oliver Twist. Oliver Asks for More. This is a very touching story, a sad story. Charles Dickens, a very famous novelist, he wrote for children, and many of his novels, they show the cruelty meted out to young orphan children. There we find David Copperfield, Oliver Twist, and then Great Expectations. They have all similar themes. So how did he get to know so much about these? So when Charles Dickens was young and his father had to go to jail due to something he had done, so Charles Dickens had to leave his studies and he had to go to a place to work to earn the living for the family. So there he came across many orphan boys of his age, and these later, from them he got the plot for his stories. And at a very young age only he wrote his novels. He started writing his novels. So Oliver Twist is one immortal creation, and this one, Oliver Asks for More, is an extract from the famous novel Oliver Twist. It is about an orphan boy, but it is finally all well that ends well, and finally it is found that the orphan boy was not from a poor family. It was due to some mishap that his mother had been separated from his father, but later he gets united to his family. He comes into property, the evil doers are punished. So that is what the story. But in the difficult phase of his life also, Oliver did not give up his good manners and his good character, which showed that he came from a good family. No one knew that which family did he come from, but it was in his blood, and that is why Oliver would never agree to do anything that was not good or that was not right, that was sinful. He never agreed to do these things, and for that he had to suffer also. But finally he finds his friends and he finds his relation, and his identity is established. But here you will find only a part where he is treated with utmost cruelty at the workhouse. So when Oliver was born, then he was kept in an orphanage, and when he was 9 years of age, from there he was taken to the workhouse. So I always advise you all to read the box first. That means the previous page where you are told about the author and a little bit you can get your answers to your extra questions from here. So this is about a little bit about Charles Dickens. Was an English writer and social critic. Yes, Charles Dickens. He is regarded by many as the greatest novelist of the Victorian era. Yeah, it is very true. Greatest novelist. And the age to which he belonged in literature, this age was known as the Victorian age, and child abuse was quite dominant in those times, especially orphan children. They were treated very cruelly, and in the orphanages also they were not given sufficient food, and many of them died due to starvation. So Oliver asked for more. The orphan Oliver and his companions were ill-treated and starved in the workhouse. See, government gives the funds for these orphanages and workhouses, but what happens? The people who run these organizations, they usurp most of the money, and only a part of it is given to the orphan children. That means only, suppose government has sanctioned this amount of food for them, the lion's share is somehow taken by the organizers, by the men who run the organization, and maybe 30% is used on these orphans. Even in Jane Eyre we find this. There is a famous novel called Jane Eyre. There also the same type of treatment in the orphanages. So here also Oliver, the orphan Oliver and his companions were ill-treated and starved in the workhouse. One day a tall boy announced that he would eat the boy who slept next to him unless he was given extra gruel. So you know how hungry these, and this boy is tall, he is growing up, he is in his growing years, so he must be having immense appetite, and so this scanty food which was offered to them didn't satisfy him, and he said, if I am not given more food, I will eat up the boy who's next to him. Then what did they do? They cast lots, that means lottery. They put the names of each of the inmates there in different papers, and it was put in a box, and the one name was pulled out, and it was Oliver Twist's name. And then Oliver Twist was given the job of asking the master for more food. So it was decided that Oliver should ask the master for more. So like, who is to go and ring the cat, bell the cat? So who is to go and tell the master? All of them, they were afraid, but someone has to do it, one of them. Oliver Twist was bound into apprentice with an undertaker. Undertaker is a person who makes coffin. Oliver Twist exposes the cruel treatment of many orphans in London in the mid-19th century. That means the Victorian age, industrial age, England. This excerpt reflects Dickens's own experience and difficult childhood. I told you, his father had been incarcerated or put in prison. And so Oliver Twist had to go and work in a factory. So, own childhood. Despite the evident pathos, Dickens manages to infuse the central character with gentility and empathy. Yes, the central character is Oliver Twist, and I told you that in spite of adversity, he doesn't leave his initial goodness. He remains thoroughly a nice boy, a good boy, a a noble boy. So now we start the story. Oliver asks for more. More what? More food. Among other buildings in a town in England, there was a house for poor people who had no money and nowhere to live. This was called the workhouse. So you might get a question, what is a workhouse? So workhouse is a place for people who had no money and nowhere to live. So this house was for those people. You can get your MCQs. So workhouse is a place for people ... So many options will be given, and the correct one will be for people who had no money and nowhere to live. The destitutes, it was a home for the destitutes, the workhouse. So thankfully they have that in England. But in India they stay in the roads, the footpaths. Oliver Twist was born in a workhouse. Why? Because his mother, she had left her home. This is a short story. This is not the original one. The original story has a number of chapters. This is a concise form of a part of the story. So Oliver's mother had to leave her home because there are some reasons why she had to leave home. She was in a state of shame, and in the workhouse she gave birth to Oliver Twist. His mother, a young woman, lay ill in bed. A doctor and an old woman stood by her side. So when she gave birth to Oliver, that time she was very ill. So there was a doctor and an old woman. She lifted her head from the pillow. Let me see the child and die. So she wants to have a look at her child. She knows she is dying. So she wants to have a look at the child once, and then only she wants to die peacefully. She said, "Oh, you mustn't talk about dying yet," said the doctor. Doctors are always there to give hope. So the doctor says, no, don't talk all these things. Why are you talking of dying? You are such a young woman. Don't talk of dying. But she knew her death was near. No, dear, said the old woman, you are too young to die. So they are trying to console her. No, this is not an age for dying. You are so young. So why are you talking of dying? Don't talk of that. The young woman shook her head, held out her hand towards the child, but the young woman knows better. She knows her time is limited. She has limited time in her hands, not much time. So she puts out her hand to hold the baby. The doctor put the child in her arms. She pressed her cold white lips. White lips, what is it symbolic of? Lack of blood. Pale. White lips means pale. She's become very pale. Soon she will die. And then fell back. So after holding the child, this is what she had wanted. Give me the child and let me die. So this is what really happened. She died. She is dead, said the doctor. Yes, poor dear, said the old woman as she took the child away from its dead mother. Poor dear. So the mother gives birth and she dies, and then it is a life of endless misery for the little child till he comes into friends. He finds one of his relative, his mother's own sister. That is much later. But before that he has to undergo a lot of adversity. He falls in the gang of those pickpockets and they force him to steal, but he doesn't steal. But here at this moment, what happens after his mother dies? She was a good looking girl, said the doctor as he put on his hat and gloves. Where did she come from? So no one knows where she came from. So the doctor remarks that she is a good looking girl. She was brought here last night. So the previous night she had come and taken shelter in this workhouse. She was lying in the street. She had walked a long way and her shoes had holes in them. That means she had walked a long way away from her home, and that is why the soles of her shoes, they developed holes. Nobody knows where she came from or where she was going to, and before they could ask her, only she gave birth to her child and then she died, and she was too ill to speak also. So they couldn't get much information from her. The doctor raised the dead woman's left hand. The usual story, he said. I see that she has no ring on her finger. She wasn't married. Good night. So if she had a ring on her finger, that meant she was a married woman. But she has no ring. That means the doctor feels that she has given birth to a child before getting married. So what happens when a mother becomes pregnant before she is married, and then because of the social stigma and all that, they leave their homes, and that is what she must have done. Many times the parents also throw the daughters out. So here it was not that the parents threw her out. Her father was there and she had a younger sister. So she left the house, but then the father and the sister also left the house because people started talking bad of them. So unable to face the insults, they left. So she left for somewhere else, and the father and the sister also left. So that is why no one knows anything about her, that she comes from a good family and all that. He went home to his dinner. Who? The doctor. The doctor leaves and goes home to have his dinner. The old woman sat down in a chair in front of the fire and began to dress the baby. She dressed him in very old clothes used for babies who were born in the workhouse. When babies are born in the workhouse, now they don't get new dresses. The dresses which had been given to one, and after that, after the baby grew, these clothes were kept, and now it is given to Oliver Twist. The child was an orphan born into a world which had no love or pity for him. So born in a world which had no love. It born in a loveless and pitiless world. Loveless and pitiless towards whom? Towards orphan children. Not towards their own children, but towards orphan children. No one was able to discover who the baby's father was or what his mother's name was. Yes, she was unable to tell anything, or maybe rather she did not disclose her name. She wanted to remain under anonymity. So Mr. Bumble, an important officer in the town, so it is he, Mr. Bumble. He is a villainous character. You will find him till the end, till not the end, but till he is there, always creating problems in the way of this orphan child. So Mr. Bumble, an important officer in the town, invented a name for the baby. So how did he invent the name? He chose the name Oliver Twist. How? We name the new babies here in order from A to Z. So suppose the previous baby was given the name S, and then he should be given a name with T, and after that the next child would be STU. So he explained when people asked, so why have you named him Oliver Twist? People asked. So he said, I named the last one Swabble. This one is Twist. So after S comes T, so he named the boy Twist. The next one will be Unwin. And why did he give Oliver? The name of Oliver is unknown. So Oliver Twist. Anyway, Bumble had given him the name Oliver Twist. This is a wicked fellow, heartless, pitiless fellow, Mr. Bumble. At the age of 9, so Oliver was a pale, thin child. He and the other workhouse boys never had enough warm clothes or food. So what happened? It was that he was sent to an orphanage and he lived there. In the original story, it is that he lived there till the age of 9, and after that Bumble came and took him back from the orphanage to the workhouse. In the orphanage also, there was a lady who was in charge, and she was also a wicked lady. She also did not give them enough food and made them work and all that. And from there also he was brought here to this workhouse. Bumble brings him again back to the workhouse, and here they were given very little food at the age of 9. So what happens? Their growth is hampered. It is a retarded growth. When you eat sufficiently, you become strong. But the boys in the workhouse, they are not given enough food. So they are pale, malnutrition, undernourished. So that is why he was a pale, thin child. He and the other workhouse boys never had enough warm clothes or food. Yeah, that is why many of the children died due to cold, due to starvation. No one bothered also for them. Even in Jane Eyre, I am telling you because there is a similarity. They were given only 3 meals of thin soup every day. 3 meals. And thin soup, not a thick one, so that it would fill it would quench their appetite, so that it would satisfy their appetite. No, it was food only. Meal was only in name. What? Thin soup. Imagine you given thin soup for 1 day and 3 times. How will you feel? You will feel that you are under starvation. As if you have starved. So for the boys, and every day the same thing. On Sundays, they had a small piece of bread. This was a bonus on Sundays. A little bit of kindness, as if. What kindness? A small piece of bread. So on the working days, they were fed just plain water, you can say. Thin soup, it is equal to water. and on Sunday a little bit of charity, a small piece of bread. They were fed in a big hall. A large pot stood at one end of the room. At one end of the room there was a huge pot, and in that this thin soup, and one spoonful. All the boys were given a bowl. They had a bowl, a small one, and the master would take the spoon, put it inside the bowl and put it inside that pot and give each boy one spoonful. The soup was served by the master. Each boy had one small bowl of soup, no more. So one small bowl of soup, will it be sufficient? And that also thin soup. The bowls never needed washing. Why? You might be asked a question. The bowls never needed washing because, and then several options given. Because the boys cleaned them with their spoons until they shone. They were so hungry, they cleaned it with their spoons. Rather like sometimes you all lick, if you have liked a dish, what do you all do? You all lick it and lick it and lick it so that the bowl becomes smooth and clean. So they did it. Why? Because they were hungry and they tried to see if there was any trace of food left, any taste of liquid left, that thin soup left. So they would clean it with their spoons only. So not a trace of soup left. It did not need to be cleaned. It was already clean. One day, Oliver and his friends decided that one boy would walk up to the master after supper and ask for more soup. Oliver was chosen. There are some more lines in the original text. In the original text, there was one tall boy. He was in his growing age, and he said that if I don't get some more food, I will eat the boy who is next to me. And the boy who slept next to him, he was a small thin fellow, and he was very frightened. So all of the boys, they called a meeting, and then lots were cast and Oliver's name was chosen. So that part has not been given here. I told you this is an extract. Many of the lines from the original story has been removed here. So this is how Oliver goes. Oliver is sent. Oliver was very nervous, and the boys, they started nudging him so that he would go, and he went trembling. So all these were described in the original story. So in the evening, the boys sat down at the table. This is their evening food. The master stood by the pot like every day as usual, and the soup was served. One spoonful, yes. It disappeared quickly. Yeah, all the boys, they finished it quickly because this was a thin soup, just like drinking water. The boys whispered and made signs to Oliver. Made signs to Oliver to what? To go and ask the master for more, because his name has been chosen. So he has to do the task. He stood up from the table and went to the master with his bowl and spoon in his hand. There were some more lines in the original book that he was feeling nervous, but his friends kept on nudging him. So these lines are missing in here. Please, sir, he said, I want some more. And after this, just see what happened to that poor fellow. What is his crime? He has asked for a little more food also. Food. The master was a fat, healthy man. He doesn't live on those thin soup. No? He eats a lot. Yes, the masters, the superiors at the workhouse, they are well fed at the cost of these people, at the cost of these small children. What wicked people they are. He is a fat, healthy fellow. But he went very pale. Why did he go pale? Because Oliver has asked for more, and if he is entertained, then tomorrow some more boys will ask, then some more again, and then the whole lot of orphan boys would be asking for more. So how will it be possible? They won't have gains if the boys keep on asking for more. So it has to be checked then and there. So he becomes pale. He looked with surprise at the small boy. My God, see his audacity. He is asking for more. The master was too shocked to speak. What? Said the master at last in a quiet voice. After he regains his composure, then he says, what did you say? Please, sir, repeated Oliver, I want some more. Poor boy, just feel how hungry he was. And then also he kept quiet. But the other boys, they as if sent him to represent the orphan boys. If he gets, then the others will also go and ask. They want to see what happens when Oliver asks for more. The master hit Oliver with his spoon, the spoon with which he served the soup. He hits Oliver with that. And as if that is not enough, what else? Then seized him and cried for help. So he seized him in his arms and cries for help. Mr. Bumble rushed into the room and the master told him what Oliver had said. Mr. Bumble, he runs into the room. Why is the master screaming for help? What has happened? What have the boys done? And then the master says, this boy, he is asking for more food. He asked for more, Mr. Bumble cried. Mr. Bumble is as if also shocked. It seems as if Oliver has committed a very serious crime, as if he has murdered someone or committed a theft. I cannot believe it. One day they will hang the boy. Ridiculous. Why should he be hanged for asking one more bowl of soup? And he says one day they will hang this boy, as if he has committed a very grave offense. He took Oliver away and shut him in a dark room. See his punishment for asking for more. The next morning a notice appeared on the workhouse gate. On the workhouse gate, Mr. Bumble puts up a notice. What is written in the notice? £5 were offered to anybody who would take Oliver Twist. So normally if you take someone, you will have to pay for that person, but here they are offering Oliver as well as offering £5. So isko bhi le jao, take him and take the money, as if to show that he was such an unwanted fellow in this workhouse. Oliver was a prisoner in that cold, dark room for a whole week. For 1 whole week, what was his punishment? He was not only beaten and shut up in that dark room for that particular night, but for 1 week the same thing happened. Every morning he was taken outside to wash, and Mr. Bumble beat him with a stick. So yes, because he is an orphan, he is nobody's property, so anyone can come and beat him. Mr. Bumble beats him with a stick. Why? It is an example to the others, to show that this is what will happen to y'all also if you ask for more. Then he was taken into the large hall where the boys had their soup. Mr. Bumble beat him in front of everybody. Why did he beat him? Because he wanted to show, if you ask for food, this is what you will also suffer. He cried all day, but there is no one to listen to his cries. When night came, he tried to sleep, but he was cold, lonely and frightened. He was in that dark room alone, all to himself. But one day, outside the high workhouse gate, Mr. Bumble met Sowerberry. He meets Sowerberry. And who is Mr. Sowerberry? You might be given 4 options. So he is an undertaker. And who is an undertaker? An undertaker is not that wrestler undertaker. Mr. Sowerberry is not a wrestler. Undertaker means one who makes coffins for others. Most probably that wrestler had taken this name because, yes, he can send many people to their graves. I don't know, I'm just assuming. But here Mr. Sowerberry by profession was an undertaker. Mr. Sowerberry was a tall, thin man and wore black clothes and made coffins. Many of his coffins were for the poor people who died in the workhouses. I have prepared the coffins for the 2 women who died last night, he said to Mr. Bumble. So Mr. Sowerberry was passing and he came and reported to Mr. Bumble that 2 women had died in the workhouse. Now I have made 2 coffins for them. Good, said Mr. Bumble. So he was given the job of making coffins. Someone died in the workhouse, Mr. Bumble would go and report to Sowerberry that go make a coffin for a person of this height, and then he would make it, and then they would take that coffin from him and bury the person. You will be rich one day. Why rich? Because you are making coffins. So many people are dying. So if you make so many coffins, if you are given orders of so many coffins, you will automatically become rich. Mr. Sowerberry, do you know anybody who wants a boy? Yeah. So he asked Mr. Sowerberry if he knows anyone who is in requirement for a small boy. And then, and £5. So I will give that person £5 and the boy also. He raised his stick and pointed to the notice on the gate. So he had a stick in his hand, and with the stick he pointed, this is the notice. Anyone needs a boy, he can come and take. Along with it, £5 also is given. So Mr. Sowerberry, what does he do? He will take Oliver home. And then Mrs. Sowerberry, and Mr. Sowerberry is basically not bad. The story ends here. But you might be wanting to know what happened to Oliver, who took him home. So Mr. Sowerberry takes him home at the £5. But Mrs. Sowerberry, and he had also a daughter. And then there was a person who worked with Mr. Sowerberry, Noah Claypole. So these are all wicked characters, the daughter and Noah Claypole and Mrs. Sowerberry. And they make Oliver's life miserable, and Noah insults him by calling his mother a bad woman. And then that small Oliver, he raises the mother whom he has not even seen, but still he fights, though he is an uneven match for Noah. And then Mrs. Sowerberry and three of them, they hit him, and when Sowerberry comes, they complain, and he is kept imprisoned in a room and all that, and finally he escapes from there and he comes to London. So this is all about Oliver asks for more. So what happened to Oliver when he asked for more food? The cruelty which he suffered at the hands of Mr. Bumble. So this picture, this story gives you an insight into the condition of the orphan boys at the workhouse. So what could be the theme? So theme could be hard life for orphans, or orphans in the orphanages, life of orphans in the orphanages, or workhouse, life of orphans in the Victorian age, you can also say, because quite a few stories were written about orphans in this age, Victorian age. So life of orphans in the Victorian age. And then yes, appropriateness of the title, actually this is a part from the original story Oliver Twist. So this part which you are having in your syllabus, in this part Oliver asks for more food. So the title is very appropriate. It couldn't have been otherwise, because it happens, he asks for more food. So Oliver asks for more is a very appropriate title. You might get, yes, your MCQs regarding this. Suppose you were given a question, where was Oliver Twist born? And what could be the options? He was born in a private clinic, he was born in the workhouse, he was born in a park, he was born in a abandoned building, he was born in a family, in a nice house. All options. So the right one is, he was born in a workhouse. He was born in a workhouse. Yes, his mother had come there the previous night and she gave birth to him and she died. So Oliver Twist was born where? In a workhouse. So that is the correct option, whichever option you get. But the correct option is he was born in a workhouse. You have to remember that. And suppose Oliver's mother pressed her cold lips to his face, and then what happened? Then she laughed, then she smiled, then she cried, then she spoke, then she died. So what did she do? She died. So smiled, began to weep, went to sleep, fell back and died. So fell back and died is the right option. So this is the right option. There will be different options given, but one will be the right one, and the right one is she fell back and died. The doctor raised the dead woman's left hand and commented that she had no ring on her finger. What does this mean? So this means that she married, she was not a married woman. The ring on the finger is symbolic of your being married. If you had Merchant of Venice, you would have known the sanctity of the ring in the ring finger. So this means you can be given she is very poor, that is why she cannot afford a ring, or all these. She did not like jewelry, none of the above. And the right option is she was not married. And to the orphan boy, the name Oliver Twist was given by Mr. Sowerberry, an old woman, the doctor, Mr. Bumble. So Mr. Bumble. The bowls in which soup was served to the workhouse boys never needed washing. Why? You know the correct option will be the boys clean them with their stones, and there will be several other options given. So this is the right answer. So whatever they ask you, if you know the right answer, you don't need to get confused, you don't need to think, you'll just go and mark the right one. When Oliver asked for more soup, how did the master react? That fellow who was serving the soup. He was pleased, he was surprised, he shouted at Oliver and he started beating Oliver. So what did he do? He was utterly surprised. Then he asked what? And that also in a quiet voice. And then he beats Oliver. So how did he react first? He was taken aback, we can say. Oliver was shut up in a dark room. He remained prisoner for how many days? For 1 day, for 7 days, for 10 days, 15 days. He remained a prisoner for a week. The soup disappeared quickly. Why? It was very tasty. The boys were very hungry. The quantity was not enough, and all of the above. Because this can have more than one answer, but not tasty. It was not tasty, but it was a thin soup. So the boys were very hungry, or the quantity was not enough. So the boys were always hungry, it is said. So the boys were very hungry is the most appropriate one. And how much money was offered to the person who would take Oliver Twist? Remember on the notice board, £5. So you might be given option 10 pounds, 15 pounds, 20 pounds, 5 pounds. So it is £5. And what was the profession of Mr. Sowerberry? He made what? He made furnitures. He made pots and pans. He made shoes. He made coffins. He made coffins. Here it is not mentioned that a person who makes coffin is called an undertaker, but in the original story this word is there. Undertaker is a person who makes coffins. So this is all for your Oliver Twist. And yes, the next class or the next video I might be coming up with a poem, or I might proceed with Julius Caesar. But bye for the time being. Have a good time.